Hello and welcome to Back to the Feature, the show where we talk about movies past, present, and future. We're talking about the present today, and we are talking about the movie that everybody's talking about right now. Well, I mean, at least most people are talking about Mother. Darren Aronofsky has again made a very singular and unique film with Mother. It's a person that I have always been highly interested in ever since I saw Requiem for a Dream way too young. And I really was interested when I heard that he was going to be doing some sort of horror movie. Now, I love the movie Pi, and it's kind of a horror movie, but it's more of a paranoid thriller maybe at the end of the day. So, hearing this concept, I was definitely intrigued. John?
Yeah, this one kind of surprised me. I didn't know that he was working on a film until probably the beginning of the summer when I heard that he was putting out a horror movie at the end of the summer. And, I mean, obviously, Darren Aronofsky doing a horror film. I'm intrigued. I'm a big Darren Aronofsky fan. Pi and Requiem for a Dream are among some of my favorite movies of all time. And, of course, The Fountain is another one that's just fantastic. Right for a rewatch right now. But... yeah. This is a movie I needed to see.
Yeah, Mother is a very unique film in the way that it really is, what I'm kind of saying is really pure filmmaking. It is a visual, visceral experience. And I think that's a big thing with this movie is it's an experience kind of film. It's like almost in a way an event film.
Yeah, I mean, especially with just the discussion that it invokes in people, you have to come out of this movie, you need to talk about it, and everyone is, and everyone has an opinion on it, and everyone has emotions from it.
Yeah.
Whether it's really the same emotion. Everyone has the same emotion. It's just, who are we aiming it at?
Yeah.
Are we aiming it at Aronofsky, or are we aiming it at what Aronofsky is talking about?
Yeah.
This movie is weird, all right? This movie is crazy. This movie is
if you're looking for
crazy.
answers, if you're looking for exposition, if you're looking for things to be explained or sugar-coated for you, well then go play a video game, because this movie does not do any of that for you.
No, this is a movie that you do have to do a little research on afterwards. I think a lot of the themes, if you're paying attention, do present themselves throughout the film. Some of it even on the nose a bit, but there's a lot of depth and there's a lot of different layers going on in here, and the more you peel back at them, the more interesting this film becomes.
And I think that no matter what you do, I think what Aronofsky has done here is an achievement. What he has done here is taking a completely visual allegorical story, bringing it to fruition through only that medium, and trying to translate this message, or really I think circles or cycles of messages that are all actually related when you start to really think about them. He tells themes and tells stories using other stories. You know what I mean?
I think like even from the beginning of his career, like you see, like he's I don't know if he's not obsessed, but he's very passionate about like patterns, and like patterns in existence, and like how they relate and function with each other. If you look at Pi, that movie is all about like what is it, gematria, like studying like the Torah as numbers, and just how like mathematics like is involved in everything, and just how the enlightenment comes from that. Requiem for a Dream. I mean, that's a shock film. It's supposed to invoke like this sense of emotion in you that just really drives you to be proactive.
Yeah.
The Fountain, you got the cycles in that as well, with with the past, present, and future, and all those things kind of like intertwining together, telling a story. Which that one you need to do a lot of study on that film too, because that movie doesn't make any sense on first watch.
Really, what I'm really gathering is that Mother isn't radically different than anything else that Aronofsky has attempted to do in film.
I said it right when I walked out. I think I messaged you. I was like, this is like singularly like Aronofsky. Like this is like no other filmmaker would make this movie. Like this movie doesn't exist until he created. It didn't exist until he created it. Like there's nothing else like this. But it is something that is very singular to his career and what he's always done. And he's one of my favorite filmmakers. Like just in general, I'm intrigued every single time he puts something out. It's just so it's so unique. It's just it's awesome that there's filmmakers out there like that.
Yeah. I think that the biggest thing like with this movie is that it's so thought-provoking. It is something that it's meant to generate discussion. That is the purpose of this film, is that you watch this film and it makes you feel and start thinking about these things, these themes and these elements. And that discussion you have after the movie, I think, is actually just as, if not more important than the film itself.
Now, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, because I do want to say we do want to give some explanation for the ending of the film and just the whole film in general, but we'll do that after our letter grades, because if you haven't seen this movie, you don't really want it ruined per se. You know, I think there's definitely things that you probably already heard. People are reading about it, so I mean, you probably already know a lot of different things. But we'll touch on our interpretation of the film and what we believe to be is right. But for right now, I think we're just going to touch on the technical aspects of the filmmaking and just kind of our critiques of that. So, I mean, what were some of the positives, I guess, that you had for this film?
Well, obviously, it's Aronofsky that it's honestly a beautifully shot film, and actually, he does such a great job with effects. And I think that's one of the most underrated thing that he has, is that he has a way of making these visual effects that look like CGI be things that are a mix of practical and CGI. There's so much, I think, just beauty in this movie and just the way that it's shot. Some of the things where we see things like creation and destruction happening simultaneously, things like that I think are really interesting in the way that he's able to show them. The performances, honestly, are really great. I think particularly, though, Javier Bardem and Jennifer Lawrence, who really had to do the heavy lifting here. Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer, I felt like they were pretty interchangeable.
Peppered in.
Yeah, really just peppered in. I think that there's a purpose to everybody's roles, and they're really executing these purposes. But I think that Javier Bardem and Jennifer Lawrence really had a lot to work with, and overall their performances are really great for what they were supposed to be doing in this film.
Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence actually really blew me away. I think there's different scenarios that she goes through where I was really like, this is some of the best I've seen her do. I actually felt like, and the movie actually follows her pretty closely throughout the movie. It's kind of like you're seeing the film through her lens and her eyes, and there's not a lot of wide shots. There's a lot of close shot, a lot of handheld, a lot of close-up shots, and a lot of tracking shots, and it's all through her point of view. So she does a lot of heavy lifting, but Javier Bardem is excellent too. And his role, I mean, there's so many subtle things in this film that are just very intriguing and unique. But going off of that, you know, like the special effects, like this is singular to Darren Aronofsky. If you guys don't know, The Fountain, if you guys have seen The Fountain or seen any images of The Fountain, that's not CGI. That is, Aronofsky was displeased with CGI, so he like literally created that as chemistry.
Yeah, in a petri dish.
In a petri dish, and then filmed it.
Dish.
Yep, hired a cinematographer that knew how to do like microscopic filming, and he wanted it to be timeless. He wanted it to age like perfectly, which it will, because of that. But that and like his editing style too, like the time lapse stuff that he does, it's in every single one of his movies. This movie is just it's experiencing what Aronofsky is, especially deep down in its themes too. But
it's hard to fault the craft of this film at all.
Yeah, its craft is perfect, and he wrote this screenplay and like it literally just poured out of him. It came out in like 4 or 5 days. But it's not, I mean, but there's different things in here that it's nothing new to what he's been writing.
Yeah. And I think and in that way, I mean, it's a very different screenplay. I think that, you know, talking about like the positives as far as the craft, there's definitely things that are going to be obstacles, I think, for a lot of audience members. Is this movie's very minimalist. Like I said, there's not a lot of explanation or exposition. You have to be kind of ready for the fact that you're going to get all these messages visually. I'm sorry. But you're going to be taking these things in and figuring these things out on your own. The movie's not going to hand you anything, and I think that is going to be hard for a lot of the audience. I mean, my audience honestly was a hilarious and also disheartening kind of experience where I would hear early on, "I'm so confused," and then over on the other side, "I'm so confused," and then cut over in the front, "I'm so confused." I heard them. But yeah, it's the whole time there was people who got up after the film. They wanted their money back. There was people that, you know, were saying, well, what the was that? You know, that this definitely just elicited a lot of response to a lot of people who did not like the fact that they were not given a lot of information in this film.
Yeah, I think from that standpoint, it does withhold, and it just makes it for audience. It's hard for audiences to engage to it. I feel like there's different aspects of the filming. I'm just going to jump into my negatives for the film right off the bat, but I felt like it's a slow burn. This is a very it's very intricately woven. You don't really know what's going on. It's all mystery. And you're picking at like subtle facial expressions and different little things that are just hard to follow. Like some of it's kind of hard to follow. It's definitely one that needs a rewatch, in my opinion, to really gather everything. But I felt like the pacing was a little, and that's I've heard that from other YouTube critics and stuff too, and I actually don't like when people always say pacing as a critique, because I feel like it's just kind of thrown out because I don't have anything. But I really did feel like this movie had some pacing issues.
Yeah.
Just because like how bonkers the movie would get, and then just how conservative then it would become.
And then the division of the time of all those different steps of it. I think it could have been a little trimmed down to maybe 15 minutes or so.
Yeah.
2 hours is just a little bit long. A little over 2 hours for this movie was a little long. I think that what he was going for, we could have gotten in a shorter amount of time. Definitely agree with that. So, all that being said, the positives and the negatives as vaguely as we can before we hit a spoiler section. John, what is your final summary and grade for Aronofsky's Mother?
And I've been talking about this film like nonstop. My voice is going out right now from typing all this stuff on Facebook. No, I really enjoyed this movie. I always dig into an Aronofsky film. I just love a movie coming out every so often that really just makes you think and makes you like dig into it and study it and find out all of its different intricacies and subtleties and metaphors and symbolism and all that stuff. I love that. I love doing that. I love decoding, and this film is just full of it, and it's beautiful. The performances in it are amazing, but there's definitely some things in there that just don't quite work, and some of it's on the nose, and there's different things. We'll get into it in our spoiler section and explanation, but as of right now, I give Mother an A-.
Mother is a very singular, unique viewing experience. I don't think I've ever seen a movie quite like Mother. It is a movie that is all about themes. It's all about you, in a way. How you feel and think about this movie, and then what you say after it's over is really dependent on the person that you are. And that's the point, is that it's really supposed to be stirring up these things. It gives you these ideas, and it's what you do with it that you make this movie into. Now, there's definitely finite things, and we'll get into that when we get into our spoiler section, but I think that this is a movie that is meant to be experienced, and it's meant to be discussed, and it's supposed to cause discussion. And in that way, Darren Aronofsky has definitely executed what he was trying to do, and the thing looks beautiful the whole time he's doing it. Now, for me, the negatives, I felt like we could have just streamlined this movie a little bit more. I got what was going on and what he was trying to say. I think maybe 15 minutes or so off this film would have just made it a little bit easier to stay engaged with the entire time, and would have built maybe a little more tension while we were watching these things unfold. So I am actually going to give Mother a B+. All right. So here we go. We're going to enter the spoiler section. Now, if you guys are still with us, you went and saw the movie, you know what happens in it. We're not going to ruin it for you. If you haven't yet, get out of here. Go watch it. Go get your opinion on it. Come back to us later. All right. Last chance to dance. 3, 2, 1. Spoilers initiated. So
what the hell?
So this movie is, as we kind of said, it's metaphorical. It's an allegory. So what we've gathered for the most part, the things that I really got and extrapolated right away is you see the biblical themes, you see the environmentalist themes, and you see the themes about misogyny and the conflicts of gender. And they're all kind of happening at once, and you're kind of getting a lot of these things and just kind of doing what you can with those.
I would say this movie is like like one of like the greatest like microcosms like I've ever seen. It literally takes like everything, like humanity in general, and like the issues and problems with all of humanity, and just kind of crams it into this 2-hour film. And the fact that he was able to do that is kind of amazing. We know Darren Aronofsky, he loves playing with religious themes. He directed Noah, that movie was definitely something way out there and different. But his background, he's Jewish, but he's also an atheist, but he loves playing with these different religious and spiritual themes. And you get this in the beginning. Like, if you've seen this movie now, the actors, they don't have names, or the characters don't have names. It's him, it's Mother. I think Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer, do they even have names? It's
man and woman.
Yeah, man and woman. So you see, like, the beginning of the movie starts out, and it's, Mother waking up. Javier Bardem's character, him, I believe, it represents God in this scenario, and Jennifer Lawrence's character represents Mother Nature or Mother Earth. Even in the beginning, like, she's created. Like, she literally comes out of ash, and, like, she comes and she's there. She's in existence then. But then you go further in, and all of a sudden, Ed Harris, or man, like, shows up knocking on the door. And I believe this is Adam in this story, or in this allegory. And he gets sick, and you see him, like, covering up the rib. And, like, it's so subtle. Like, I didn't even catch that at first. But there's like a scar, there's like an open wound. Yeah. And then the next morning, a woman shows up, and it's Michelle Pfeiffer, and then all of a sudden, there's that curiosity in the house, and there's the office with the diamond, which I think represents the Garden of Eden and the fruit from the knowledge of good and evil. And Eve goes up there, she can't stay away from it, she just wants to touch it, and they end up breaking it, and they're cast out. He boards up the doors. I think it's, it's like it's clearly allegorical to that. Step. And then, it's like step for step. And then, like, the sons show up, and the one bludgeons the other to death, has the scar or the mark on his forehead, which in the Bible, Cain was marked by God because of what he did to his brother Abel. Just all those are like really apparent, but that's like how the movie is paced. Like, that's the first act, of the film. And you're seeing all this, and you're gathering all this from the perception of Mother. Yeah. Jennifer Lawrence.
This movie, in a sense, like, it's an allegory in the way, like, if your parents have ever explained to you how you were being an asshole, they're like, well, imagine if you were this person, and then you came into their home and you started doing this. It is that, but for Mother Nature. And I'm going to touch on some of the environmental things that are in it as well, is that it really is showing how, like, basically our influence and what we have done on this planet and how it has affected this planet by personifying her as a person. Showing what the actions that we have done as a society, which I think that, all of these themes are related. I mean, the Bible and religion has defined our world for thousands of years, I think, basically, at this point. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty much the existence of man, or even just being able to write or communicate. We have made religions of some sort, and it has defined how we live our lives, and it still does. So to sit there and say that misogyny and the way that we treat our environment and the way that we are as a people are not influenced by these things, these biblical themes and stuff, that's just wrong. That's just silly in that way. And it's like I said, it's trying to put us in the shoes of this thing, of our earth, and to show us what kind of horrible house guests we really have been. I mean, that's just breaking it down to just the most basic way of saying it.
So then, like, going into the third act, too, I'm going to just keep explaining this a little bit. But, I mean, like, I think the obvious is the Jesus, like, metaphor, the baby being born. I love the reaction between Javier Bardem and Jennifer Lawrence, like, I'm his father, no, I'm his mother, and just, like, that interesting, it's really, like, deep subtext, but I think, like, Jesus being fully God, fully man, fully earth, fully spiritual. I just love that representation, like, the gifts presented, and, like, all these things, and Javier Bardem's character, God, or the creator in this story, gives the son up to the people, regardless of how they act. and then of course, if you've seen the movie, it dives into like madness. It's shocking. It's disturbing. It's disgusting. And there's so much madness going on there, and I think it's really interesting, especially coming from someone who is of faith, and a lot of people are coming out and saying this movie is blasphemous. I don't feel that it is blasphemous, because in our in the Christian faith, Earth is not sovereign, and I think that's kind of what Darren Aronofsky is also showing in a way. Because of like, and you know what I mean? Like, he believes that the environment is really, really important. It's something that's very passionate to him. And I really don't think he's disrespecting anyone specifically in this movie at all. I think it's really it's a microcosm of everything.
Yeah.
I think that faith and religion has caused a lot of madness. And a lot of different chaotic things, and I think you see that even in the house. You get like there's like shrines being built, and there's like the idol worship, and
then
false,
the wars and stuff that happen.
Like all that different stuff is just breaking out, especially with like the communion too. Like people, almost in a way, I felt like it was like bastardizing or showing hypocrisy, and that's not a bad thing to illuminate. If you're offending people in like a Christian faith, by showing that, like, that's just kind of absurd to me. Why would you be offended by something like that? That's happening. Like, there's obvious hypocrisy in different things, like every religion. But I don't know. It's such an interesting thing, and I'm drawn to that type of filmmaking, and I'm drawn to that type of allegories. That type of allegory and that type of metaphor. I don't know. It's just such a unique experience for me.
Yeah, and I think, as I said earlier in our review, I think that this movie is a lot of like kind of what you make it and what you draw from it, and that all these things are presented, and they are there. All these things are there to dig into, and they really just take the time and attention with Mother. And it's definitely a movie that's not going to be, at the end of the day, for everybody. Not everybody's going to like that kind of experience, but I think that it being the purpose of his craft to do this way, and what it's supposed to elicit out of the audience, which is the discussion, shocked or not. If you're offended by what you saw, that is still part of what he's trying to get out of you. You need to examine why that offends you and direct that at the right people. Because something is shown in a movie doesn't mean it's glorifying it. And just like in this movie, it is showing the horrors of what we have done, and our ignorance and our hypocrisy have done. And there was actually a part of me when the audience's huge reaction, the really negative reactions I heard from a lot of people, so I was walking out, it made me think about the point that Darren Aronofsky was making in the film. So guys, I really hope that you stuck around and heard the spoiler section for this. Tell us your thoughts, but make sure you tag it. It's spoilers ahead, okay? Tell us what you guys think about the movie. What did it mean to you, and what did you draw out of this film that maybe is different from us? Tell us in the comments. You can also find us on Twitter at BacktoFeature, and you can find us on Facebook at /BacktoFeature. I've been Giovanni Carlo.
And I'm John Bedalou.
And we'll see you guys next time.